Hi Flosstube, it's Karen, recovering monogamous stitcher. I'm back with video number 73. Welcome to my channel. I'm so happy to have you all here. Today is Friday, July 4, 2025. So happy Independence Day to those of you who are in the US. And welcome to not only my longtime subscribers, but my new subscribers. I'm so happy to have new people joining the channel all the time. Please like the video if you enjoy what you see and consider subscribing. It really helps Flosstube update my algorithm and I get sent out to other people's feeds and we grow the community by having more and more people watch the videos. So that's the welcome. Now I have a shout out. And I haven't done a shout out in a long time, but I am so excited about this one. My friend Jeannette from Central Kentucky Stitchers posted her first Flosstube last night. So I think I may be the first person giving her a shout out. Her channel is called My Mother's Daughter KY, KY meaning Kentucky. My Mother's Daughter. Jeannette is just such a wonderful person and she is so comfortable on camera and she comes across exactly as she does in person. There's no pretensions. That's Jeannette. That's exactly the way she is. And it was so much fun to see her and hear her talk about her stitching heritage, her grandmothers and her mother, their quilting, their sewing, all their stitching. And she also shows us her stitching journey, what she started with and what she has come to. And she shows a hardanger that she finished that is jaw-dropping. Jaw-dropping is wonderful. Please stop by and see her video and consider subscribing to her. I'm just looking so forward to hearing what she has to show us in future videos because the first one just started out great. She's so natural and so much fun to listen to. So welcome to Flosstube, Jeannette. Thanks for taking the dive. So check her out, My Mother's Daughter KY. Thanks. Okay, on to the business at hand here. What have I done in the last 2 weeks? Well, I have had virtual meetings with Central Kentucky Stitchers and also with Queen City Sampler Guild. It is so much fun to stitch with other people and talk to other people while you're stitching. It's so relaxing. It's second best to being in person. So if you do not have a stitching family, consider joining either of those groups. Central Kentucky Stitchers, we have a Facebook page. And you can join the Facebook page and you'll know all about our schedule and when we do onlines and when we do in person. And you know, people come visit from far away without even ever planning to come in person. Also, Queen City Sampler Guild, they have a website and there's a wonderful group. They offer many online opportunities throughout the year. I live about a 2-hour drive from where they do in-person meetings, so I don't go, but the membership to me is so worth it for all of the online classes and lectures and there's so many opportunities with them. So consider Central Kentucky Stitchers on Facebook or Queen City Sampler Guild also on Facebook. And they have a website, so check that out and consider joining. It'll really enhance your stitching life. Just saying. Okay, let's see. Oh, and I stitched every day, and I have that all marked in my book of days, so it was really a good 2 weeks. I have no fully finished items to show, but I do have a finished stitch. I finished stitching Dorothy Bryant. This is a Hands Across the Sea sampler. It's a reproduction antique sampler, and I finished it yesterday. So here she is. She's stitched on 40 count dirty teacup from Linen and Flax. I use Soie 100.3 number 523. And she's finished. And it's been a while since I've talked about, and I have new subscribers, so I think I need to cover it. Since I've talked about what I do when I finish and how I keep track of my whips and so forth in my book. So I'll just take a minute to do that. So she's finished being stitched, and you'll see she's not been ironed yet. And when I say iron, I mean press, but I put my pieces face down on my big white fluffy towel. You saw that in the little tour of my reorganized closet the time before, anyway. So it goes face down on my white fluffy towel, and I press, press, press. And I lightly, around the edges, I lightly spritz. And if there's a wrinkle in the stitching, and I think there could be a possibility of any kind of color transfer, I take my finger and just dab on a specific spot and press over. Of course, I'm pressing on the back and press over it, so there's no problem. Then, once it's ironed, it's not going to go back. I mean, it will not be folded again. Hang on. Okay. She will then go in my medium-sized project roll. So she'll be rolled up, not folded, and then I will take this to the framer. I should be able to take it on Tuesday, and my framer will measure it, and I'll choose the frame. She will cut my acid-free foam core, which I then take home and I lace it myself. That's a service they would do, but I do it myself because if I can do it, I'll just save a little money. And then when the frame is in, I take it back and they pop it in and finish it off. And I should be able to show it to you in the next video. So that's my process with that. But then I keep track in books. Let me show you. Where'd my books? Okay. So Dorothy Bryant, I keep track in the cross stitch journal. I get this from Fat Quarter Shop. I'm in number 5 of my journals. And Dorothy Bryant was number 19 in this book. So when I finished stitching her on page 19, I wrote the finish date. This is backwards to me in there. So I wrote the finish date here. I then went back to the table of contents and wrote the finish date next to the name. And that's how I know what my whips are, because there's no finish date. And there are some in my book number 4 also, that are not yet finished. And then I know which is oldest because they're in date order. Every time I start a new one, it's the next one in the book. So I know my oldest whip. So that's how I keep track of that. And then, but wait, there's more. In my book of days, I had my book of days spiral bound, and I had extra pages put in the back. And I have one that's tabbed for finishes 2025. So when I finished it, I added her to the list with the date. And at the end of the year, I'll know how many finishes I had in the year. That's an interesting number for me. And even though this year is not going to be as many as it has been in years past, because if you've been with me for a while, you know that I had gotten away from my quilting as much when we were wintering in Florida, and I was becoming really dissatisfied with that, and I wanted to get back to my quilting and do both. So I've decided on a schedule of machine work in the mornings, and then in the afternoon I switch to handwork, which is my cross stitch. So I'm satisfied that I'm getting quilting done, but I'm not getting as much cross stitch done. But I'm happy. It works out well, and I'm sticking with that so far. Okay, I'm going to pause here for a second and get my whips. Hang on. Okay, these are the pieces that I stitched on in the last 2 weeks, not necessarily in the order I stitched on them. I stitched on Jessie Challinor. This is an antique reproduction from Hands Across the Sea, and it has been charted in 2 colorways. The first colorway, the bright, I say the first, the bright is the way the piece looked when Jessie stitched it. And the more muted color palette is how it looks after fading over the years. And I chose to do it in the bright colorway. They just jumped out at me when I saw it. So, okay, I've made quite a bit of progress since the last time you saw it. I think I had not all of the alphabet done, not the numbers at all, and I had started some of this flower area. So I finished the alphabet, finished this beautiful flower clump here, and did the numbers and started this. And then there's a matching flower arrangement over here. So plenty more to do, but I love the colors. I love it. And this is available exclusively from the Attic in Mesa, Arizona. So if you would like to try stitching Jessie Challinor, contact the Attic in Mesa, Arizona. They would be happy to send it to you. And, and she lives in my Jessie Challinor bag. They also have available at the attic these printed panels of the finished sampler. This is the larger of the two. The other one might be, I don't know, maybe an inch smaller each way or something like that. It's a little smaller. But I made my project bag out of that. Okay, the next thing I stitched on was specialty stitches, a la 1838 by LH. I think it's by LH. This is from Jeannette Douglas. We got this project at Sampler Symposium at the attic in January. Jeannette provided the entire kit, the fabric pre-cut, all of the silks that are needed, and it's a wonderful kit. Okay, I'm going to show this to you. Don't laugh. Don't laugh while I'm still living. People after I die can laugh their heads off at this. Okay, here it is. When I did, now she recommends doing, just a few of the outline blocks at a time, because there's one that goes vertically top and bottom, so you don't want to accidentally stitch through the center of that. When I did my first frame for 4, I knew that I had made a mistake on the framing because the patterns are so perfect to follow and my count wasn't coming out right. But I finished them, finished the pattern as much as I could in there. So then I did my next block of 4, and oh yeah, it was, and I was convinced, okay, this time I have it right. And at first I thought, should I just turn the fabric over and start from the other end and redo? Well, I had 4 blocks of specialty stitches done and I didn't want to lose them. So, I decided, okay, I'll just count the frame now, make it right, and continue on. So it's going to be there. It'll just hang there and it'll be wrapped on a spool. Maybe no one will unspool it all the way to find that silly problem at the beginning. But so anyway, I've now the frame for the next 4, and I certainly want to do at least another block in the month. Maybe I'll do more than 1 block, but that's specialty stitches. And so surprisingly, the problem is not with the specialty stitches, it's with the counting, because counting is hard. So that's specialty stitches. And that lives in my pretty Felicia bag. Okay. And last time I showed you my patriotic stitches that I had not started, and I said, why haven't I started these? So after that video, I looked through them and I decided, okay, I will do a new start on one of the larger ones and a new start on something that's smaller, and just kind of plug away at them in July and see how much I can get done. So I started the Equality Sampler from Plum Street Samplers. This is the Declaration of Sentiments from the Seneca Falls, 1848, 48? I can't read the date now. But it was, yeah, Seneca Falls was 1848, where they had a big convention and they came up with the Declaration of Sentiments. Okay, and I have a start. And I was overly concerned about the size, so I put strips of fabric on the side so I could put it in the hoop. I probably didn't need to do it, but anyway, so I started that in the corner. Okay, now here's a tail. Again, counting is hard. Okay, so I did this wonderful system that Sherry Colorado Cross Stitcher does. So like you have this whole long line. Well, it's hard to count. So if you go half stitch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and on the 10th do a cross, and then 1, 2, 3. You can count then with your pattern and find out exactly how long it has to be. Perfect. I did it perfectly. Except, so I was coming back, got all the way back here and filling it in, doing the whole top and bottom, and it wasn't lining up right, because back here, instead of putting, you see how it goes, there's 2 stitches and then 2 blanks and 2 stitches and 2 blanks. On one of them, I had done 1 instead of 2. So I got down here and went, it doesn't work out. So I took it all out, found my mistake, took it all out. Okay. And then now I have to start it again because, counting's hard. I can't count to 2 apparently. So, but this is the Equality Sampler. I plan to just plug away at it in July, and then it'll get put away. And I'm not going to let myself stress about it as a whip. Just the same way I put the snow day stitches away. Okay, that'll be for that season. I'll think about that then, and I'll think about this next patriotic season. But I have a pretty good start on it, and I'll get that fixed up. And that lives in a little patriotic bag I made for myself with flags. Okay, and the small that I decided to start was Red, White, and Bloom with the needle and thread, Brenda Gervais. There are 5 or 7. I think there are 5 little pillows in here. And I got this one stitched. This is something garden, Liberty Garden, Garden of Liberty. And then this is something Sam Spangled something. Okay, so I have this big piece of fabric and they will all fit on here. I measured out, she says what size fabric you need for each of these separate things. And I took a friction pen and just marked them out. Well, that's way huge. You don't even need that much. So I'm gonna go with the iron and erase those lines. And I have way more fabric than I need for all 7 of those. Because when you make them into those pillows, you trim them down like 1 inch around. So there's way plenty. Anyway, so Red, White, and Bloom, Brenda Gervais. Another patriotic bag I made for myself with some old fabric from the 90s on the inside. And then I worked on, I didn't tell you what the counts were. And if you want to know, just put a question at the bottom or in the comments and say, what fabric are you stitching that on? Anyway, sorry, I try to remember it, but it's written in my notes, but I just don't pay attention. And then I stitched on my focus piece because July's a new month, and last month I had finished Margaret Hutton. And so this is Gott. This is from Needlework Press, and this is an adaptation of an antique sampler. So this says like a gift to my aunt or something like that. And I changed it. I'll show you the verse I put in. And then down here, I moved things around to put my initials and the date I stitched it in here, even though I kept her name and initials. Okay, so Ann Gott's work, and then her date, and then what was that? Oh, age 16. And then I put my initials and the date I'm stitching it. So I better get it done in 2025 because the date's in there. Uh-oh. I've heard that that's a bad idea because as soon as you do that, you've sabotaged your project. You won't get it done that year. Hold me to it, guys. Make me get this finished. But it is my focus piece. It'll get done. That's Ann Gott. And this is stitched on 40 count Macchiato. Caramel Macchiato from Fiber on a Whim, and 46 count. I didn't put the numbers in my notes, and I just put my book away. So the 46 count Caramel Macchiato, and I'm using DMC and Weeks, and I think there's some classic color works also. And at one point I had run out of the Secret Garden, this color green, but I ordered 2 additional skeins and they came. So I have to fill this in. There's a house here and there's a big rose here. This pot will mirror this one. I don't think this one's, maybe I just finished that or it's close. And then there's something else. So that's my focus piece. And those of you who followed me for a while are sick of hearing, but my focus piece is always my oldest whip, and I give it 7 days in a month and stitch on it, and it remains my focus piece until it's done. So she will get done. Okay, I'm going to pause a second and be right back. Okay, I have a little bit of haul to show you. Last time I think I told you I didn't have any haul, or maybe just my thread club, but I forgot. I did receive the Queen of the May, Elizabeth Stevenson, 1854, from the attic. This is, I think this is, no, it's not. This is the Queen of the May. This is available any place they sell Hands Across the Sea samplers, patterns. And my friend Donna and I are going to start this in October when she's done with her garden. I get it. That's fine. I'll wait. And anyway, I have a few other things to work on, so it's no problem, Donna. No rush. And she is living in the Margaret Hutton bag because that became vacant. And I have my threads. I think they're, yeah, and I'm doing the DMC. Beautiful colors. And I have this cute little drop from Anne. She handed that out when we were stitching at the mill. Isn't that cute? So my threads are ready. I have the pattern. I have the fabric. It's 46 count. And, oops, sorry, that the bling makes noise. Now, because I wanted the 46 count because it'll fit on a stitcher's quarter instead of having to go to a half yard. But the margins on the side are only going to be 2 inches. So I will, like I did on the other one, I will sew a strip of fabric on the side so that I can have it in the hoop. I'm not concerned about that as a margin for framing. That's fine because I do my own lacing. I won't argue with myself. So, so I got 46 count and it is just the ticket. Oops, from Tabby Cat. Okay, so that's my Queen of the May. Okay, I love the bling, but it is noisy. And from Fat Quarter Shop, I got my Sew sampler box for June. Must have been June. Yep, for June. Okay, and I have pawed through this. I have to tell you, I did. Tulip pink fabric. I'm excited. Okay, so in this box, they included magic clips, which are larger than the clips I have been using, so I'll be interested to see how it is to have some bigger ones. Oh, and it has markings on it. It has measurement markings on them, so that's useful. They included a 3.5 inch ruler from Creative Grids. Haven't unwrapped that yet, but that'll go on my ruler rack, which is overflowing, but I can make space for that. They included a spool of Aurifil. What's the number? It says in this someplace. Where's the Aurifil? 50 weight Aurifil Violet. Probably to go with this project here. And then the project is Wise Guys with owls. And this fabric is meant to be a starter with it, but you have to, of course, get, you know, the background fabrics and bindings and backings and stuff like that. So that's that. And then they included, of course, then the next pattern in the series for this year. These are all flowers, I think. Yeah, flowering. And last year's was baskets. And my friend Jody got me all caught up with all of those. So I have those. But I can't find the fabric requirements. And I know that fabric is not available, but I would buy fabric for it. But I can't find the fabric requirements. Where do I get that? And if you know, if you put it in the comments, I mean, otherwise I'll call Fat Quarter Shop and just say, where do I find it? But anyway, so that's my sampler box, and that's the total of my haul at this point. Okay, so box plans. Okay, plans. And then we'll get to our winner in a minute. Okay, so I've stitched 2 days on Gott, so I owe her 5 more days in July. The Martha Miller Sal from Queen City Sampler Guild, I will stitch whatever I decide is, there are 3 months left, and you know, so at the bottom there's a border here, and border across the bottom. Maybe I'll do that instead of, I don't know, but I will do an appropriate amount on Martha Miller so that she will be done in September. I'm going back to specialty stitches. I'm going to do at least 1 or 2 blocks of the specialty stitches, and I'll ignore that little blip in the what do you call it, the border. Okay, the last 2 quilts I had hanging were made by my grandmother. You saw the Trip Around the World that she made for my mother, and my mother gave it to me. And then last video, you saw the quilt that my grandmother made for my husband and I as a wedding gift. Both of those quilts are fragile. They are in need of washing, and they are not labeled. So my goal really soon is going to be to wash those quilts. They will not be in the washing machine. They're much too fragile for that. They will be bathtub dunked. And then I'll spread them out on the plastic sheet on the floor in the family room like I do when I block my quilts and dry them there. But they will be labeled before they hang back in that closet. I have to do that. I've been saying that to myself for years. I have to put a label on that. Well, it'll get done now. And then the other thing I have to do is I have 3 quilts that I'm submitting to the Kentucky State Fair, and they need to be blocked. I delayed that as long as I could because I have to crawl around on the floor to pin them down and measure, and then crawl the other side and measure the other side. And So it's tedious, but I have 3 of them, and the time is coming when I will be delivering them. Okay, so I'm going to be at Hobby House on the days that are specified for dropping off items at the fair. And one of my wonderful friends from Central Kentucky Stitchers has said she will drop my items off for me. Bless her heart. So we will be in Berea a little later this month, and so that's a good time for me to take them to her, and then she'll have them to deliver to the fair. So that was a long story, but that's my plans. And speaking of State Fair, let me show you the cross-stitch entries that I am going to be submitting this year. Hang on. Okay, before I get to my State Fair entries, I skipped our winter chicken dinner. I had two copies of this pattern, My Country by La Di Da. And I asked you if you were interested in receiving this to put the word country in your comment. And I used the YouTube random comment picker this morning. And the winner is Carol S. I'm not sure if it's Carol. I'm sorry. Just look at it. Number 704 at the end. Okay, can you see it? So Carol, send me an email using the email address that's in the notes below, and I will send this right out to you. Thank you for entering. All those of you who entered, this is widely available if you want to buy it yourself. Of course, you wanted to win it. Okay. Okay, my State Fair entries. You can only enter 1 item per category. So there are 2 categories for Ada. One is finished as a framed object, and the other is a finish as something else, a different kind of finish. So it could be jewelry, purse, belt, whatever, pillow, whatever. Okay, so my first entry for Ada is mason jar lineup. You haven't seen this for a while. So this is stitched on Ada. I believe it's 14 count Ada. And I love it. I love it. And I have not put a label on the back of this yet. I mean, Hobby Lobby has their label on there, but I haven't done my library card. I have to do that before it goes out the door. And daughter has claimed this one. Isn't it gorgeous? I do love it. The back stitching is a pain, but that's what makes it. That's what makes these really stand out. So that's mason jar lineup. Put this back in here. And then the other Ada submission is something stitched on Ada that's finished in something other than a frame. So I did Counting is Hard from Luminous Fiber Arts. Oh, I thought that was a thread. It was on there. Oh, it got a dent in there. It must have been laying on something. Luminous Fiber Arts, and I finished it as a flat fold using Vanna Pfeiffer's tutorial. One of my favorite tutorials. I love this finish, and I did the cording according to her instructions and followed it. I do like being able to make your own cording because you use the same color that's in your piece, and it's of course going to match. And this is some really old fabric I had from probably the 1990s, late 80s, sewing themed fabric. So that's my second, it's my submission for the non-framed ADA finish. It's a little hard to say. Okay, put that down. Okay. Okay, the next one is an item stitched on any specialty fabric. So they include linen, joblin, da-da-da. Well, I stitch on linen. So my submission this year for the framed stitched on linen is the Smith sampler. We had a really close look at this when I first got it finished. This was my birthday start in 2024, and I finished it a little after my birthday in 2025. And I used Vicki Clayton silks on this. I used her silk conversion. I do love it. And the fabric is color and cotton, cottage stone, I think. And I do have it labeled with my information on the library card pocket. So that's the Smith sampler. That's my linen or specialty fabric framed submission. And that's all I can submit. Red Deer sampler that I finished last year hasn't been submitted. I can only do one. And Margaret Hutton would have been qualified for this one. I can only do one. So anyway, that is frustrating to me, but that's the way it goes. Okay, that's that category. Now, okay, then the next is something stitched on specialty linen, not framed, finished in some other way, the same way as the ADA. The one I chose was one of the spring green pears. I didn't have a lot of choices this time. I did have Henry and Clara, but when I took them out and looked at them with a critical eye, I could see that my stuffing was a little lumpy in the back, and I couldn't work. I mean, I massaged, see if I can get that lump out, and it really doesn't come out. And the backing fabric I used is a plaid, so you really see when that goes. So I decided they wouldn't do as well, and so I chose one of my spring green pears. This is not Erica Michaels. Annie B's Folk Art Designs. And I got this as a kit from Spring Green Country Sampler in Spring Green, Wisconsin. Okay, so that's my non-framed linen finish. Okay, I don't do full coverage, so I have nothing to enter there. I did not do any ornaments, and I do not have a stocking, so I couldn't do any of those. The next category that I can enter is perforated paper. And I'm submitting Mary Amelia's bird in this round frame that I got from Amazon. This is an 8-inch diameter frame. And the problem with this, of course, is that if something is framed to be entered in the fair, it must have a wire hanger. And this came with one of these little, little hook things. Well, I couldn't submit it. So I took it back to my Hobby Lobby girl, and I was finding hardware on the rack, and she said, no, those are way too big, do this. And you see those little eyes? And I thought, oh, I thought I couldn't do that because they stick out. She said, no, it'll be fine. So she put bumpers on this, can't use this either, but so there are bumpers on this, and then here and here, and it'll hang great on the wall. It will. And the only way I could get my library card in was to put it sideways because there was no space on the back. So Mary Amelia's bird, stitched on 18-count perforated paper that I stained myself. I used DMC, and I used 2 strands of DMC. Now, behind this, did I put batting? Yeah, I put, I had the cardboard circle that went behind, and I put a circle of batting on. And I auditioned different fabrics to put behind. And I was thinking it would be brown or beige or something. But when I laid this on the darker fabrics, it made the holes kind of jump out more than I liked. So you'll be surprised to hear this fabric behind this is gold. And I just think it really makes it glow. I liked that the best, but I did audition a bunch of different fabrics. So Mary Amelia's bird, that's my submission for perforated paper. Put this down without dropping it. Okay, the next category is a framed sampler, and of course I have lots of choices, but not knowing what the judges are looking for, do they recognize marking samplers, band samplers, samplers that don't necessarily have a full alphabet kind of, you know, what are they? I don't know who these people are. I don't know what their qualifications are. So I went very traditional red sampler. This is a Stitch in Time Saves 9. This was finished not too long ago, but I thought it was a good entry because it has lots of fancy, these bands are fancy with, is it double running back stitch? Special double running back stitch makes it fancy, and so I thought maybe that would be a pretty good choice. And I have it labeled on the back, of course, with my library card with all my details. And that's not a requirement of the fair. I just do that on my pieces myself. So that's that one. Oops. And then the last thing that I can qualify for is a class project. Any finished piece that was framed or unframed, completed by an individual as part of a formal class. Well, through Jingle Ball, I took the class with Janine McGowan last year, and I did Festive Forest. And if you remember from our geometry lesson, boys and girls, this is a hexahedron. It really was fun to do. It really was. So this is my finished class piece. It's the only thing I would have from a class. So, and then the other category that I have nothing for is a pillowcase with cross stitch any color. I don't have that either. So that's my cross stitch entries for the state fair this year. And I will also have 3 quilts. We'll talk about those. I don't know if I'll have, I'm not an editor, so I don't know how to insert pictures and da-da-da. And so we'll see if I can show them to you, but you've seen them all before. And now we will talk about the featured quilts. So I'll be right back. Okay, the first quilt I'm showing I did in red, white, and blue colorway. And the pattern is called Lady of the Lake. And I did this as a quilt along with Fat Quarter Shop. The individual block pattern is available free. It is part of their Classic and Vintage series. And for a very reasonable price, you can buy the pattern that gives you the cutting instructions for various sizes. Like, I'm sure this is a lap. They had lap, twin, queen. I don't know, probably the range of like $5 or $6 or something like that. I can't remember. But I did this as a quilt along with Fat Quarter Shop, and I did the quilting with a pantograph. Can you see the stars and swirls? Okay, yeah, they show up pretty well. Okay, I did show this quilt, both of these quilts I showed 2 years ago, and I thought it was time for a reprise, especially since this is July 4th. And I think that is just such a striking pattern. Now, the binding I did on this, if you can see here, I did a faux flange binding. Someone on the internet, I think they had a blog or something, had directions for making your binding with 2 colors, and then when you fold it, the second color would show as the flange, and I haven't done it again. I mean, it turned out fine. I liked it, but I just haven't done it again. I'd have to find the instructions. I don't remember what they were. So, okay, let me flip this over a little bit more so we can see. Here's Uncle Sam. He's back to say hello. Those of you who've been with me a while know that I have various quilts that I hang to cover the fuse box. It's not really a fuse box or breaker box, whatever they call it. And so this is one of them, and it hangs from May until Labor Day when I switch over to something else. This was relatively early in my long arm quilting time, so I had fun experimenting with different designs. I like this little feature on his hat. It's the brim of his hat is a flange of fabric. And I found some star buttons. Actually, he sat quite a while without buttons, and then I found the stars, so I thought they were right for his vest. And I did a little design here. I made a little template and did that design in all of the center 4 block or we call it 4 square, 4 patch. And I pulled out every red, white, and blue fabric that I had and made it really scrappy, and it was fun. Practice straight lines with the ruler, and I did this. This is egg and dirt. That's a very old traditional quilting design. Of course, continuous curve. You see me do that a lot. So that's always a favorite. And so there's Uncle Sam and Lady of the Lake. All red, white, and blue, happy. And I think that's all I have for you today. All right, let me not touch a button here. Okay, I think that is all I have for you today. My next video I plan to record on the 17th, which normally it would be on the 18th, but that's the first day of our stitch get together in Berea. So I'll see you in less than a couple weeks, in 13 days. In the meantime, have happy stitching. Bye-bye.